The Bravo studio pulsed under the buzz of hot lights and tighter smiles. Plush chairs, neon signs, a live audience humming with restless energy. It looked like just another night on Watch What Happens Live. But beneath the glamour, the air was crackling with something sharper. Jennifer Lopez stepped onto the set draped in a white blazer dress, sleek, immaculate, and dangerously calm. Her walk was effortless, but her posture told a different story. This wasn't performance, this was control. Measured. Tactical. Andy Cohen greeted her with a grin 2 shades too wide. "Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer Lopez." Applause swelled. Jennifer smiled, small, poised, and took her seat across from him. The camera zoomed in just as she crossed her legs and locked eyes. He leaned in like a cat that thought it still owned the room. "So, let's talk about Diddy." The audience tensed. It wasn't curiosity. It was collision. Jennifer blinked once, slowly. Her voice didn't rise. "You think that's a cute question, Andy?" The crowd chuckled nervously. Andy chuckled, louder, emboldened by the sound. "Oh, come on, it's fun. People want to know you've dated some powerful men." He winked. She didn't flinch. She leaned forward, lips parted just enough to let the blade slip through. "You mean I survived powerful men?" Silence. The kind that eats sound whole. Then, gasps. Not for the answer, but for the warning behind it. Andy shifted in his chair. The smirk faltered for the first time. Jennifer sat back slowly, as if placing a chess piece she knew he couldn't counter. The cameras were rolling. The audience was watching. And she wasn't playing along. Not tonight. Not again. Something had cracked. Not just the script, but the whole charade. And Jennifer Lopez wasn't going to blink first. The silence lingered like ash. Andy tried to mask it with laughter. Thin, nervous, hollow. He reached for his cue cards like they might save him. Okay, he said, raising his hands. "Didn't mean to touch a nerve." Jennifer's smile returned, colder now, precise. "No nerves touched. Just tired of being packaged for punchlines." The audience stirred. Some clapped, others whispered. Andy cleared his throat, flipping to safer ground. Or so he thought. "Let's pivot," he said, tone bright. "The green Versace dress. You know that changed the internet. You made Google Images a thing." Another laugh. A celebration disguised as a trap. Jennifer tilted her head, and yet they still searched the dress before they searched the work. Andy blinked. "Come on. That was an iconic moment. The Super Bowl halftime show. You had people talking for weeks." She nodded slowly, words heavy with intent. "Yes. About how much skin I showed. Not how I choreographed every frame, not how I co-directed it, not how I brought 2 cultures onto one stage." Her voice didn't rise. It lowered. Steady, deliberate. "You want to talk about me like I'm a collection of headlines. But I'm a woman. A mother. A creator. Not your entertainment chess piece." The room shifted. Andy raised an eyebrow, still clinging to charm. "We're just celebrating your legacy, J-Lo. You've built an empire." She leaned in. "And every brick of it was laid while someone like you told me I didn't belong in the building." Applause rippled, involuntary, before people even realized they were clapping. A few gasps echoed through the audience. Backstage, a producer made a sharp gesture. "Cut it now." But the cameras kept rolling. Jennifer continued, her voice softer now, but no less cutting. "Do you know what it means to be a Latina in this business? It means being cast as fire, never depth. Spice, not steel. It means being asked how you got here, never why it took so long." She wasn't pleading. She was indicting. "I've seen the same pattern my whole life. Rita Moreno wins an Oscar and still gets ignored. Selena becomes a legend after she's gone. I spent 30 years proving myself, and I'm still asked about who I dated to get here." Andy opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The moment had rolled past him. The audience was no longer laughing. They were listening. And for the first time that night, Andy Cohen looked small in his own studio. Jennifer's tone softened just enough to feel human again. Not a performance. A truth. I'm not here to drag anyone. I'm just done shrinking to fit your format. She sat back. The line hung there. Sharp, irrefutable, undeniable. A moment passed. Andy tried to force a smile, but it didn't land. Well, this took a turn. Jennifer raised an eyebrow, voice low. No. It just finally turned toward reality. The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was personal. Andy Cohen's face twitched, the familiar smirk faltering under the weight of something he hadn't anticipated. Control slipping. He fidgeted with the cue cards again, this time not for transition but for refuge. All right, he said, forcing a chuckle. Let's lighten the mood a bit. Time for a fan favorite, the quick-fire round. The audience perked up. The set lights dimmed slightly. That familiar Bravo game show vibe returned. Andy grinned wide. Here we go. Don't think. Just answer. Who was better in bed? Ben or Mark? The air snapped. Gasps shot across the audience like a wave. Jennifer didn't blink. Her body stilled. Every muscle bracing, not with anger, but something sharper. Calculation. She exhaled once. Slowly. The smile returned, tight as piano wire. You run this show like a high school cafeteria, Andy. He laughed awkwardly, trying to wave it off. Oh, come on, we've all had a little fun in the quickfire. Jennifer cut in, voice like silk, with a serrated edge. But I didn't come here to play your gossip girl. The tension didn't just build, it crystallized. On camera, on air, in front of millions. You want a quickfire? She continued. Let's do one. Real fast. Andy raised an eyebrow, caught off guard. Okay? Jennifer sat forward, elbows on her knees. Lindsay Lohan. Rehab question. Regret it? Andy blinked. Mariah Carey. That We Love Shade segment. Still think it was cute? He shifted. Jennifer. We don't need to. Nicki Minaj. Teresa Giudice. Every woman who walked off this set humiliated while you laughed. Still funny? A cold hush spread through the room. The audience had no idea whether to clap or cry. Jennifer's voice lowered. You don't interview women, Andy. You bait them. You prod them. You corner them into viral clips, then laugh from behind the glass while the internet tears them apart. His smile collapsed. His fingers trembled slightly, still gripping the cue cards like a lifeline. She leaned back, her tone calm now, eerie in its precision. This isn't shade. This is sunlight. And some people melt when they're exposed. Online, the clip was already circulating. TikTok was dissecting every second. Twitter was ablaze. Jennifer Lopez eviscerates Andy Cohen live. Fan accounts posted receipts. Old clips, headlines, reactions. Viewers were no longer watching a show. They were witnessing a trial. Andy attempted to pivot weakly. We're just here for laughs. No, she interrupted. You're here for laughs. I'm here because I was told I could promote my album. But apparently for women like me, even success has to be repackaged into scandal. Her eyes locked onto his, unblinking. Your jokes aren't harmless, Andy. They're rehearsed, weaponized, dressed in glitter but dripping with condescension. She took a breath, steady and full. And the saddest part? You call it entertainment, I call it exhaustion. A beat of silence. Then another. The audience didn't cheer this time. They just sat there, stunned, silent, some nodding slowly, as if realizing something they should have known all along. Andy slumped slightly in his chair, his usual armor, charm, quick wit, smug deflection, in tatters. He looked at the camera, then at the crew, then back at her. But Jennifer had already turned her gaze to the audience, to the viewers, to the millions who'd ever felt cornered into smiling, while someone reduced them to a soundbite. She didn't need to raise her voice. She already had the floor. Jennifer didn't speak for a moment. She didn't need to. Her silence said what words couldn't. That this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't about a single question, a single show, or a single man. This was a culmination, a reckoning, and behind her smile, there was history. The camera panned subtly, framing her profile as she glanced toward the studio lights, distant, thoughtful. Then she spoke and her voice shifted, no longer sharp but strong, anchored in memory. "I came into this business as a backup dancer," she said, soft but steady. "I was 22, living in the Bronx, taking the train to auditions, wearing the same shoes until they fell apart." The audience listened. No laughter now, no reactions. Just breath held tight. "I was told to lose weight, told my nose was too wide, that my name was too Latin. They said, Jennifer Lopez won't sell, that I'd have to be someone else." Her fingers rested lightly on the armrest, nails tapping, in rhythm, like a heartbeat trying to stay steady. I danced on in living color while the men got to headline. I got small roles, sexy parts, spicy parts, but never the lead. Never the voice. Andy sat quietly, not out of grace, but out of loss. He had nothing left to hide behind. Jennifer's gaze turned back to him, calm, yet filled with fire. "You want to joke about my relationships, about the dresses, but you never ask what it took to still be standing," the audience murmured. Real murmurs now, not studio cues. People were nodding. People were remembering. She continued, her tone low, deliberate. "They said I was just a body, just a brand. They said I was manufactured, over, recycled." Her smile curved, sharp this time. "And still, I headlined stadiums." Applause started. Not wild, not performative, just real. "You know what they call me now?" she asked. Andy hesitated, unsure if it was rhetorical. She answered for him. "Too polished, too calculated, too aware of the camera." She looked straight into lens too, speaking now not to Andy, but to every little girl watching who had been told she was too loud, too brown, too much. "I had to become calculated. Because chaos is luxury. White men get to be messy. Girls like me, we have to be bulletproof." A pause. "I smile because I've had to. I walk in heels because the world never let me sit. I built an empire, yes. But every deal I signed I had to read twice, because the first version always cheated me." Now the audience clapped again, louder this time. Whispers of "say that." "Come on, J-Lo." Andy shifted, clearly desperate to retake control. "I think, look, I get it. I've built something too, you know." She cut him off gently, but firmly. "You inherited access. I created opportunity." The line landed like thunder. The split screen of the broadcast, Jennifer on one side, Andy on the other, told a story more powerful than the words ever could. One face composed, weathered by war, the other unraveling in real time. She leaned forward slightly, the last note soft but shattering. "Don't mistake longevity for luck. Don't mistake my smile for silence. And don't mistake this chair for permission." The lights above seemed to dim for a second, not literally but emotionally, like the spotlight had shifted permanently. Jennifer had arrived as a guest. Now she was holding court. Jennifer exhaled slowly, as if she had finally reached the part she didn't want to say, but had to. The air in the studio felt dense. Not hot, not loud, just heavy, like everyone could feel that something sacred was being unpacked. Not a scandal, not a headline, a truth. She looked down for the first time that evening, fingers resting in her lap. Her voice dropped, not in volume, but in weight. "I'm tired." Andy tilted his head. "Tired of what exactly?" She looked back up at him. Her eyes didn't blink. Her voice didn't waver. "Not of the work," she said. "Never the work. I love the work. I live for it." A pause. "I'm tired of having to work twice as hard for half the respect. Tired of having to prove that I'm more than a body, more than a dress, more than a Latin accent you can market in spicy commercials." The audience held their breath. "Every movie I make, every album I release, every show I headline, someone asks why now or why her or who's behind it." She glanced at Andy again. "And the answer is always the same. Me. I'm behind." Her hand pressed lightly against her chest, "but the world keeps pretending like it's a magic trick. Andy tried to recover. But Jennifer, come on. You've conquered the industry. You're a global icon. Her laugh was soft. Sad. You think being an icon protects you? It just makes you a bigger target. Now the tempo changed. The words came quicker, edged with emotion. I was left out of Oscar conversations after Hustlers, even after critics said it was the performance of my life. I've broken streaming records and still get asked if I'm relevant. I give a halftime performance and get told I'm too sexy for TV. But when male artists grind in the same spot, they're called legends. A ripple of uneasy acknowledgement ran through the audience. Every time I'm asked about Ben or Mark or Diddy, it's another reminder that people are more comfortable with me as someone's partner than as my own damn force. Andy's mouth opened slightly as if to interject, but the force of her words swept right past him. You want to know what Latina fatigue is? She said. It's smiling when they call you a diva, knowing it's code for ungrateful. Brown girl. It's getting applause for your curves until you speak your mind. Then suddenly you're difficult. Her voice broke, not cracked, but widened. It didn't feel rehearsed. It felt lived. It's having to teach your daughter how to walk into a room full of people who already decided who she is, before she even opens her mouth. That line hit something deeper. The audience sighed. Not in boredom, but in grief. Shared, understood grief. Andy leaned forward, now visibly rattled. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. We really do love you. Jennifer looked at him with something between pity and precision. Loving me while you degrade me isn't love, it's possession. Silence. No music, no cue cards. Just a man sitting in the echo of a truth he couldn't deflect from. Jennifer let the moment linger, her expression unreadable. Then, softly, with a final twist of clarity, I've carried this industry's contradictions on my back for 30 years. But I won't carry your comfort anymore. The lights, the laughter, the show, they all seemed far away now, because this wasn't entertainment anymore. This was emancipation. Jennifer adjusted the mic clip to her collar, as if readying herself not for an interview, but a deposition. Her gaze cut sideways toward the studio walls, the Bravo logos, the glass shelves lined with memorabilia from 100 outrageous interviews, all framed in fluorescent glamour. Then she looked back at Andy. The smile was gone. And so was the patience. You know, I didn't really come here to talk about Bravo, she said, voice even. But it's impossible to ignore the machine when it keeps recycling the same blueprint. Andy raised an eyebrow. What blueprint is that? Jennifer didn't flinch. Humiliation, dressed as entertainment. Chaos, packaged for syndication. A nervous laugh rippled through the audience, unsure of where this was going. But Jennifer didn't give them space to settle. Why is it that women, especially black and brown, women, are always cast as the villains, the loud ones, the ones who throw wine and storm out? Andy tried to interject. We don't cast anyone that way. No, she said firmly. You don't need to. You edit them that way. You bait them that way. You reward that behavior with airtime and punish silence with being cut out. Her words hit harder because they weren't theoretical. They were lived, and they were backed by a decade of receipts, and everyone knew it. Jennifer leaned in slightly, narrowing her voice but expanding its reach. You call it tea, Andy. But it's trauma. You've turned women's pain into prime time. He looked stunned. The studio, the crew, even the audience, and all frozen in that unspoken question. Did she just say that? Yes, she did. And she wasn't done. I've watched clips of housewives sobbing while you sip cocktails and call it iconic. I've seen you laugh when women relive the worst moments of their lives. Divorces, breakdowns, betrayals. Because you know, it'll trend on Twitter. She shook her head slowly, sadness creeping into her tone. And the sad part is, you've convinced them it's empowerment. Andy leaned back, suddenly small behind his cue cards. Jennifer's voice softened. You've built a universe where conflict is currency, and for women of color the price is always higher. A hush fell, not the silence of discomfort, the silence of truth finally spoken. Then she looked around the set one more time. The neon lights, the Andy bobblehead, the kitschy little mugs. How many stories have been cut? How many voices flattened just to make a good segment? She didn't wait for an answer, because everyone already knew it. Andy's usual armor, charm, wit, practiced ease, was slipping. Every smile felt thinner, every quip lighter, as Jennifer leaned forward, her presence expanding to fill the room. The cameras captured it all, but even they couldn't frame the magnitude of what was unfolding. "You think this is just a single moment?" Jennifer said softly, almost to herself, almost as a warning. "It's a pattern, a decade of patterns." The audience stirred. Whispers ran like undercurrents through the studio. Behind the glass, the producers froze, some mouths agape. Jennifer's words cut through the hum of background chatter. Lindsay Lohan on rehab questions, pushed into corners she didn't choose. Mariah Carey's shade segments, carefully, orchestrated to humiliate. Teresa Giudice forced to relive trauma for ratings, and countless others. Every time it's the same formula. Make them sweat, then laugh. Andy's hands clenched slightly in his lap. His usual tactics, laughing, it off, redirecting the focus, were failing. The audience wasn't laughing, they were listening. And worse for him, they were connecting the dots. "You don't ask to understand," she continued, voice steady but sharp. "You ask to control the story. And if it trends, if it goes viral, it's a trophy. Not a lesson, not accountability, just clicks." A beat passed. The studio lights seemed to dim in the weight of her indictment. "You've weaponized charm, Andy. Smiles, quick wit, jokes, all polished so no one sees the way they wound." Her eyes were locked on him now, piercing, unrelenting. "You've built a career on making women uncomfortable for your entertainment. And tonight, it stops." The audience held its breath. Some leaned forward, some whispered, but every eye stayed on Jennifer. Andy's smirk faded completely. The glow of his confidence, honed over years of social climbing and media dominance, was flickering. Jennifer continued, her tone almost mournful. "It's not enough to call it fun anymore. Because when the pattern repeats, when the same faces, the same cultures, the same voices are exploited for your amusement, it stops being funny. It becomes oppressive." She leaned back slightly, letting the words settle like a stone thrown into water. The echoes rippled beyond the studio. Live tweets, clips going viral, reactions flooding in real time. The internet had already started, judging, parsing, fact-checking. This wasn't just a live show anymore. Andy tried to interject, his voice quieter, defensive. "Jennifer, I didn't—" "You didn't what?" she interrupted, calm but firm. "See it, own it, stop it. You've built a kingdom on other people's discomfort. And tonight that kingdom's getting a mirror." The audience responded subtly, a ripple of nods, murmurs, whispers of finally. Even those unfamiliar with every Bravo controversy could feel the gravity of her words. For the first time that night, Andy Cohen wasn't running the show. The spotlight, sharp and unavoidable, had shifted, and Jennifer Lopez wasn't just a guest anymore. She was the reckoning. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, her gaze drifting over the studio audience as if measuring not their attention, but their comprehension. The cameras caught her subtle movements, the tilt of her chin, the steadying of her hands, the way her eyes flared just enough to signal that she was about to cut deeper than she had before. "You call it entertainment," she said, voice calm, but edged with steel. "But whose entertainment are we really talking about?" Andy's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" Jennifer's lips pressed into a thin line. "I mean this entire ecosystem is built on someone else's pain. Ratings, clicks, virality, it all comes at a cost, and that cost is almost always women of color." The audience shifted. Some leaned forward, sensing the gravity. The cameras captured the subtle intake of breath, the invisible weight that her words carried. "I've seen it for decades," she continued. "You lure guests into oversharing. You manufacture conflict, you edit reality, You present it as spontaneous drama. But every clip, every question, every moment is calculated, and the people paying the price are often the ones least able to defend themselves. Andy opened his mouth to speak but paused as the weight of the statement settled. Jennifer didn't wait for his response. She had no interest in debate. Only in revelation. You call it fun. The network calls it engagement. Social media calls it viral. I call it exploitation. Her gaze sharpened. Do you know how many careers have been disrupted because a woman refused to cry on cue? Do you know how many times someone like me has had to smile through humiliation so viewers at home could be entertained? Andy's fingers fidgeted on his cue cards, no longer a shield but a fragile lifeline. He tried again. We're just giving the audience what they want. Jennifer cut him off. No, you're giving the audience what you want them to see. You curate discomfort. You monetize trauma. And then you call it ratings. The audience murmured, not in dissent, but in recognition. The air was thick with the unspoken truth that many had long ignored. And here's the kicker, she said, leaning slightly forward, eyes locked on Andy. Women like me, we perform twice as hard, work 10 times longer, and still face scrutiny over how much skin we show, what we, where or who we date. The network profits, the host laughs, the public eats it up. And the cycle repeats. She exhaled, voice softening but still resonant. This isn't entertainment. It's a system designed to make us complicit in our own exploitation. And I refuse to play that game anymore. A hush fell over the studio. Even the crew behind the cameras paused, caught in the gravity of the moment. The audience wasn't just watching anymore. They were witnessing accountability in action, raw and unflinching. Jennifer straightened, her composure returning. I came here to promote a project. But apparently, for some people, even success has to be repackaged into scandal. And tonight, that ends. The silence lingered for a heartbeat longer. Then, small but insistent, the first murmurs of applause began to ripple through the room. Not the forced claps of a rehearsed studio, but real human acknowledgement, the subtle tremor of truth finally landing. Andy sat back, still trying to mask his unease, but it was clear. The balance of power had shifted. The ratings game wasn't just exposed, it was being rewritten.